Oh, so I'm going already. That's fast. Oh, looks like I'm here. A lot less fuss this time. Merry Christmas, everyone. Today I'll be finishing up part 3 of my Seashore Trolley Museum trip. In when was that anyway? June of 2004. I'm not sure who's gonna really. No one's around yet, but anyway, I hope you all had a great Christmas. I think I'll be back for another stream sometime next week. But I said I'm just sort of stalling, waiting for people to sort of show up. Anywho, this will be a sort of a little bit shorter, pretty straightforward set of photos. This will be the alternate part that like I said, when my memory cards only held 96. This was one card and change. Of course, 96 ironically is so they do these photos in batches of 48. That actually is sort of an odd premonition of the future. Exactly equals what it needs to be. Anywho, so here we have again what I thought was an MBTA car, but is an Eastern Mass Street Railway, which I assume has maybe has some sort of color scheme throw to the what would be MBTA, cream and orange. It's probably some sort of Peter Witt car. Everything's a Peter Witt car. Blah blah blah. It's either a Peter Witt car or a Blinny safety car or a PCC. I mean, if someone asks you what a car is and it's not an open side, just say one of those and you'll pretty much get it. Uh-oh. I just realized I left all my whatchamacallit refs on the other doohickey. Again, it was a really nice day to be out there. I'm pretty sure that it's Maine, so it's not going to be that hot either. Might want to move this stuff around. There it goes. Okay. So yeah, trolley museums are super fun. I wouldn't necessarily camp out at them or even get if I live. I mean, I guess I live close enough to Baltimore. I probably should have gotten a membership there. I was just never there. Usually, only have to go to some place like twice to make it worth it, and I was never there even that much. I wish that they really need to if they could expand their. I love when trolley museums become like the McKinney Avenue operation in Dallas, where the museum is now operating a full-on transit service. But it's I think that avoids some uncomfortable ADA issues. We don't need to be ADA compliant. We're a museum. Here we have an interesting thing, coupled right behind the SOAC car, no less. This is a Philadelphia Bridge Commission bridge. What we just call them a bridge car, built by J.G. Brill. These are probably one of the most Art Deco inspired subway cars in the United States. The Bud R11s might be up there too, but those are post-war. These were a set of 20 or so cars, maybe less, 20. That were constructed for the Ben Franklin Bridge service in the 1920s, or I'm not sure when it started. The bridge was built in 1926. At some point, they activated the subway line. It ran from 8th and Market to Camden, but bridge trains could reverse out of the 8th and Market station and then travel up to Fern Rock. They were basically run as part of the Philadelphia Transit Corporation fleet. I don't think this is number 76, but oh, there it is, 1023. There you go. But Uh, there's a number of them. Philly has one or two in their quote unquote historic fleet. Patco has one, but I heard it's gutted. Patco actually used these as the bridge line turned into Patco when it was extended out to Lindenwold. It superseded a lot of the old bridge line trackage, even using the old jointed rail, 100-pound jointed rail. And they had some of these as work motors with cab signals, able to sort of tow flat cars and stuff around until we entered the high rail, or until like sometime in the 80s, I think. Let me just double check what the old file name was back in the day. Oh, there. Wait. Just so I get this stuff going here. Not sure where that one would have been stashed, or what I called it. Just gotta search through all the files. Nope, go back the other way. I'll find it in a second. Huh, some of these... Wait, where is all this? Oh, this is the stuff I already did. And then I wanted to look at the, towers. Come on. Museums, here we go. Thought I had this already pulled up. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, I'm just going to call it 1023. Note that third rail cars on trolley museums for safety purposes are converted to trolley pole operation. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I guess it's what they got to do for insurance or whatever. Here we have a Brill Bullet. These were always loved by the fan community. They were used on the Norristown, the Philadelphia and Western, now Route 100/Norristown High Speed Line. I heard people figured that they could get up to like 80, 85 miles an hour, but I heard that during fan trips and something SEPTA would re-gear the speedometers to make people think they were going faster than they were. This is another highly Art Deco inspired car. Don't know what the number is. But the Rock Hill Trolley Museum in near Mount Union, Pennsylvania, I've heard, has the best operable Brill Bullets. Although the Seashore does have a route where they might be able to actually stretch their legs. So yeah, Seashore is just neat. They have all sorts of weirdo stuff just sort of hanging around. But who knows if it's ever going to see the light of day. It's like that thing in the back of your attic that no way you're going to be able to get out of there. Here we have an original Blue Line car. I don't know what series this would be. Probably just give it the same name I called it before. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Sorry if this is an inconvenient time to do a thing. But it's the only time I got. There might be a bonus stream tomorrow, but it's very TBD. Here we have a guy operating. I'm pretty sure he's operating that 4000 series car. Those pictures, I assume, were taken out the side of the window. There it is. Oh, I guess it's 1267, whatever car that is. Again, here we have the Paris car backlit photo. Trolley museums tend to have cars they really, 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 really like to use. With only the good stuff coming out on members' days. The issue isn't that it's limited. Things are limited to members. It's that you got to get there on the members' day to see the members' day stuff. So that's always another issue. As I sit here and just use up some of the old file names I used last time. No sense in not. I might well just check who's in the chat right now. Got some guy from Memphis. I've never heard that the Bullets had canvas roofs. I would highly doubt that. Brill wouldn't, they were built in the 30s. That seems very odd. I've never heard any of that. I mean, I don't know, but I've never heard that. The Bullets were always. The comparable cars at the time were typical, what they call the Stratford cars, which were just normal type of street cars. They're probably a bit better for suburban or interurban service. But the Bullets were really state of the art when they came online. They were always fan favorites. But again, today they I'm sure that they're running them on the overhead, which might limit performance. And of course, you're not going to get anything running 70 miles an hour on a heritage line. Anyway, as much as we'd love to see it. There it is. So I'm just, I wasn't super interested in stuff on the loop, but you always got to take these are the quote unquote nice pictures of the things on the loop here. I assume this is the cab of the Paris car. Yeah. If you don't, for those of you who don't know, this appears so. There's your handbrake there, blah, blah, blah. I think that's a handbrake. Not sure what... That's the door control there, that handle. There's some sort of very, very simple air brake there. And then here's your controller. Basically, you remember that thing else, if you saw the other parts and you saw that the contact, the cam control, basically the same thing, only instead of having a pilot motor do it, the operator did it. So the operator had about 20-something... It had a series... parallel, but it had about 20 acceleration points. So it was basically on the operator to instead of selecting an acceleration rate, the operator selected exactly, his acceleration rate was how far around he cranked that handle. As you approach, then in the 30s, your position was select your acceleration rate, and finally starting getting the 60s. You had enough electronics in there to basically just say mash the controller to the max power and let the electronics do all the rest. That was always a thing in the Long Island Railroad MU cars. You would get operators that even today will baby the controller to prevent wheel spin or to ease the acceleration. When if you read the original manual, it just says push it to max power and then let the equipment do the rest. In the Philly area, we call it PATCO used to. So the Port Authority Transit 1968 was an ATO line, and it didn't have any computer control. It was electronic. So it would just be like everything was max acceleration. It would have a speed target via the cab signals or the station stop transponders, and it would apply max acceleration or max brake at all time. Very efficient way to run the line. The automatic operation, even without any kind of computer control, would routinely beat the operators by up to a minute, just simply because it would just do max acceleration or max brake. I know that other places, you get operators get scolded for passenger comfort, but in PATCO, because the automatic system was the automatic system, People just got used to the fact that you sit your ass down because you're going to get thrown around if you aren't careful. And no one ever had a problem with that. Not sure what the Patco acceleration rates were. They weren't as good as a PCC, and I'm not talking like PCC emergency brake, track brake, where it just stops and everybody gets thrown around. But it would catch you by surprise if you didn't know what you're looking for. Huh, we're already getting out of the Shoreline Trolley Museum stuff. I think I had 39 photos, so I'm not sure what a lot of these are going to be. Pretty sure I went through all of them. So I'm just going to... This is a cute little picture that semaphore framed. Let's see what's going on here. Yes. So Patco, it starts with the bridge line. So between 16th and Locust and 8th and Market, so when Patco was built in 1968, the 16th and Locust to 8th and Market section was from what I understand, a bare track bed. It was built for a loop railway around the city, and it was basically abandoned. I mean, they never completed it. From Market to what is today Broadway was the original bridge line. Was the bridge line which started operation, I think, in the 30s, when over the Ben Franklin Bridge, and then in '68 that was converted, just converted to Patco operation. From Broadway out to Lindenwold is we're running on the former PRSL line, which again was converted from traditional commuter rail or very limited service dying commuter rail to the rapid transit line. And the Atlantic City line is currently conjoined with that between Haddonfield and Lindenwold as a third sort of separate track. Here we have a picture at the loop of the return sign. And again, it's a manual block system. They pretty much just don't want... they don't want to have a Mexican standoff. Even if the block signaling will help with that. Huh. Where's this? Yeah, okay. Back at I don't know how many trips I took on the thing, or how much I was there for most of the day. It was fun. Beautiful light. See, I don't have a lot to talk about once I've gone through the basics of yeah, it was fun. Here on the double slip with the sea tower in the background. I guess you pick a nice... I don't know how much of Maine gets affected by biting flies. So I guess if you're not there during biting fly season, it's super fun. Man, the resolution used to save this stuff on stuff at was terrible. Huh, I could have cropped that better. Oh, I didn't crop it at all. I mean, I didn't resize it at all. That would be... there's a problem. This might need a little bit of a tweak. There we go. There we go. And there we go. And there we go. Just got a quick picture of a wire frog. Oh, this is the wire, like, diamond. If I think this might be what's over the double slip. I have no idea. God, it's very hard to see how this. The perspective here is terrible. I would say this is the wire diamond, but I don't see how it works. But that's the only thing it could really. I mean, it's clearly a wire diamond. But yeah, that's really strange. I'm not quite. You would think that they're, so the double slip with a trolley line over it. Like, how do you do that one? So I guess it's a wire double slip. This stuff's in 2 different directories, so I got to make sure that I'm maintaining. All right, there we go. This is some part of the orange line structure, probably a station house or something. Again, nice it was saved. They used a lot of. It's crazy how much copper they used on that thing. Both the Boston, the original Boston, the trolley subway, which I think was the first subway in the world, electrified transit subway, and that L were quite markers of civic pride. So they put quite a bit of money, extra money into it. So here we have the SEPTA M3 AK Almond Joy car. These were 618. So the real shame for me was that growing. Well, I don't want to go into another rant of I didn't have digital cameras. I didn't have digital cameras. But the real shame is that as a kid. Especially before, I had any adequate ability to record stuff. I was not. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So the SEPTA Almond Joys, they looked like regular stuff. I mean, there's nothing special about these. They're stainless steel. I guess they had a rail fan window. They were kind of crummy inside. But the only thing that as a kid I ever remembered, because when I would go from Jersey to Philly, you'd take Patco in. And let's say you got off at 8th and Market or whatever. The Market Street L was just that thing that cost extra money to go 3 blocks, and you might as well just walk. And my parents always like, we're going somewhere to the museum district or whatever, and it's 3 of us. And it's just like, you walk. And there was a couple of times where, I got on, I rode them, but I didn't quite get that, because when you grow up riding Patco, you think everything's got a rail fan window, you don't get how special that was. I didn't understand that the M3s didn't have air conditioning, so they would leave all the front, you'd leave the storm door windows down to blow out the trains. I didn't understand that they didn't have a central. The M3s are that type of car that occur between 2 generations. It's stainless steel, at least to some extent. They were built by Bud, but they didn't have any sort of like door chime. You had a conductor with a with a British police whistle that would pull into a station, and they'd blow this whistle when the doors were closing. And I didn't get that. It took me a while to figure out what the heck that was. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then, that was something I was aware of. It was something I knew had happened. But by the time I was aware enough to, when I was in high school, suddenly they were gone. Boop, gone. They got the new AdTrans things there, which also had rail fan windows. They were fun. But they were gone. And I was never aware. you know, when there was going to be a farewell. I think there was one. I wasn't plugged into any official railfan scene at the time. I just, you know, read books. Online wasn't really fully developed. They left just a few years shy of me being able to appreciate them. I missed it by that much. And I don't even, again, this is not the I wish I had a digital camera rant. It was I didn't get to appreciate these even with a film camera or riding them. Thank God I preserved the signaling system using those on the new cars with before they ripped out the signaling system. I rode the line with a tape recorder describing what the signals were so I could make diagrams, and those exist today. On nycsubway.org. But but by the time I knew how special these cars were, they were gone. And because you didn't think they were that old. You'd look at them and they look thoroughly modern. They look like they look like a Broad Street car, which are from the 80s, you know, with the fluted lower, the flat upper. They got those weird Almond Joy humps on them, but everything else looked okay. But they were not, and no, you know, that's sort of on me. Heading out here, I from the passing car, I should have made him stop, but I think we were late getting back. I got a picture of a Guilford rail system signal. Looks like it's milepost 2182. So by the way, that Almond Joy car had just arrived. It was so new. It didn't have trucks on it. It was just showing up, being donated from SEPTA, being bought from SEPTA. What did I say? 2182. Okay. I gotta go. Signaling. Guilford, Freight Main. Just trying to figure out my naming convention here. Oh, that's Hudson Line. Here you go, 2182. There's some incompatibilities here. Nah. Now, there's still a lot of good searchlight action on the old Guilford rail system. And even when it's replaced, they're putting in targets, which is nice. Here we have MBTA Blue Line. I think the Blue Line still uses traditional signaling. I'm not entirely sure. That's something else I can go look at. There it is. Come on. When did I take those damn Blue Line pictures? Yeah. Yeah, it looks like they are. See, it's odd. It's like Boston has all these, contracts for like redoing or refreshing orange and red line signaling, but the blue line is still plugging away as its good old ABS. I just want to get the naming convention down for this dude. When was I doing this? 2011. So, pretty sure it's still using the, it's still on its ABS kink. Oh, the Rocky car? I mean, I guess, yeah, we just do always, there's so much in Philly that's Rocky related that we just call them Almond Joys because of the roof humps. If you ever eaten an Almond Joy. I hate Almond Joys. I'm not a huge coconut. I probably, I haven't had some in a while. I didn't like them as a kid. I'm sure that they're okay now. It's just not my preference. Yeah, the major fun part about the Almond Joys wasn't even the rail fan front window. It was the fact there was no air conditioning. So in the summer, they would drop that front. You could drop the front window and get like a blast of air. That's what was cool about them. It wasn't. It's beyond rail fan window. They had a level of interactivity that you really do not see today with openable windows, which I think you can do on New York City subway cars still. Some of the older ones, they have like barely openable windows, but I haven't checked on them. No one ever opens them. Here we have a Boston 9026. So Boston, just like the blue line, just like SEPTA, the old SEPTA signaling system on the market, Frankfurt. This is a grade time signal. The lunar white indicates that the next signal is held at red for speed control purposes, not block occupancy purposes. Da. Here we go. Back at New Haven. This is strange. Is this a one-car shuttle trade? Quite possibly. This also might be when they were still doing combining trains at New Haven, or I really don't think they were doing that anymore. Up until the electrification started really got going in, I think, 2000 or 2001, maybe in 2002. Amtrak Regionals doing a power change at New Haven would drop cars that would get picked up to go to Springfield. And arriving Springfield trains, it was the weirdest thing. I did it once. The Springfield train would pull in, then it would pull forward, sit in the middle like on a pocket track. The regional would show up with a diesel. The diesel would come off. The Springfield line diesel would push the coach onto it, and then like an electric would show up. So it was like it was like one of the last things you had like through cars. And now like rightly so, that was absolutely insane in this sort of day and age. And they stopped doing that, especially when they didn't have to do power changes anymore. Very few power changes are at New Haven, but they're still neat if you're there for one. Here we have a Phase 4. I'll call it a heritage painted P42 DC. So this number 111 was painted in heritage Phase 4 scheme. Yes, I insist on anything anything that's still in service today appearing in an old scheme. I will call it the heritage scheme. It was a forward-looking heritage scheme. That is sort of an odd thing, is that you would think that they just wouldn't repaint stuff. Like Amtrak doesn't usually repaint things, but they actually did repaint a whole bunch of their P42s, even though like nothing else ever gets repainted, unless it's like in an accident. I've seen 111 a bunch of times. I've encountered this one in a bunch. I wonder if I could get wreck damage units aside. I would not be surprised if I was very close to getting pictures of every Amtrak P4. Like I had pictures of every HHP8. I'm pretty sure I had pictures of almost every available AEM7. I haven't looked though. I need to do that. All right, here. What is the last bunch of these photos? Hope it's nothing weirdo. Okay, we're good. God, I hate when I get like weirdo stuff in there. I think it depends. Phase 5 did a lot to make the P42s, the whole Genesis, look better. They had major that whole blunt nose looks terrible, and the Phase 5 scheme makes them look sleeker. I have to look at that again. Hold on. I guess this helps a little bit. Anything that the Metro North all gray scheme looks absolutely terrible for these. It highlights that terrible nose. The complete lack of any sort of. I mean, these might as well be box cabs. Oddly enough, it is monocoque and it is a unibody construction. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, these. Again, I'm not surprised the M2s got retired, but the M6s and M4s were a real loss, especially since the M6s were from the mid '90s. I really, really hate it when railroads get to retire crap that they bought and they retire it early. The FTC, it's like if you aren't made, if you buy bad units, you gotta run those for 30. It's got to be on you to run those. Just so you learn, or you don't get federal funding to replace those until 30 years hence. If you scoop a contract, that's on you, transit agency. The Fed shouldn't be bailing you out of that one. Neatest thing on the M2s, with those Grand Central Super Expresses. This is back before the line got slowed down due to both PTC and speed restrictions. I remember I rode a couple of those when I was still in school up in Connecticut, and they were timed from Grand Central to New Haven about as fast as an Acela, because Metro North, the line is slow. These had because there's a 90-mile-an-hour section in New York. They had they were limited to 90 miles an hour, but and most of the line in the Connecticut zone was 75. But I remember I was sitting there I was watching out the front cab, totally in the analog film era, no ability to do videos or anything of this, and that engineer was just flooring it. He kept hitting the overspeed at 90 on a 75 thing, and Metro North didn't give a crap what its own. Amtrak goes, 5 miles an hour limit. They'd catch that and they'd, be all over them, but they don't care what their own trains are doing. Metro North had a very interesting, it got blamed for a bad safety culture, but it wasn't quite that. It was, Metro North had a lot of good employees that had been there for a long period of time. When Metro North was formed in 1983, all the Conrail people bailed out and went to pick jobs on the rest of Conrail, because that was going to pay better. So Metro North sort of started from a fresh slate. And, they had all these people that had been, it wasn't everybody left, but a lot of people left. A lot of their management was brand new, too. So you had sort of an unwritten, it was a culture, the safety culture was from a competent workforce that knew what they were doing. And as soon as those people retired in mass, 30 years, 1980, 83, goes up to 2013, suddenly we have employees getting run over left and right, derailments left and right, because all the people who knew what they were doing they had left. But in 2003, it was one of those examples of, there were rules, and then there were employees that knew how to not crash the trains, and that's what really ultimately mattered. And they had, yes, enforcement was lax, 44234. Enforcement was lax, but people knew not to crash, and then suddenly those people were gone. But there was all sorts of fun stuff like that on Metro North. They knew what exactly they were doing, and they ran it very, very well. And whether that's because it was a bunch of old old New Haven era people, or just because it was a bunch of folks that came in 1983. I don't know. I know the management came in 1983. I don't know how many of the people, if they hired a lot of engineers off the street or what. But maybe they just had their pick of the litter and they got rid of all the bad employees in 1983. One issue that I used to have for naming, I'm not sure how much this comes up, but this was a major problem back in my film. I have a lot of film stuff. I have the prints. I know the negatives are around, but I have no idea where a lot of them where they went. I'm going to get all that stuff scanned at some. I'm missing a huge bunch of photos, film stuff. There's somewhere floating around the house. But one of my major problems was I have a lot of interesting New Haven stuff, but it's all on film. But part of the problem was that back when I started taking pictures, I would just sequentially name stuff I took at New Haven. And I was coming down from college, so I was taking a lot of pictures at New Haven. So I have like New Haven photo 1, 2, 3, up to 156, which is a lot in the film days. And they're completely undescriptive. I kept doing it out of tradition, and I'm just like, why am I doing this? So here we have the Stamford. These unfortunately were replaced. These are searchlights, but they aren't really searchlights. They're fixed. They show flashing yellow, pretty much, or maybe stop as well. Yard approach and stop. But they are. New Haven was one of the few railroads in the Northeast that used units which is H5 searchlights, which was a product improved H3. I don't know. More quote-unquote modular. New York City subways. So, FYI, New York City subway is increasing a lot of the speeds. I've heard a lot of from what I've heard I've heard a couple of things. One is, yes, you have the thing of being able to hire cheaper employees, blah 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 blah. The other thing I've heard was that they were trying to proactively prevent rulebook slowdowns by proactively slowing down the speed of the trains so that the unions would have less leverage. A lot of the speed restrictions back up through the time. It was one of those. These are the speed. These are the speeds, but they weren't enforced. So employees that were trying to make their run would be able to go, at some amount of speed. Arguably safe, but because braking performance and train performance improved. So I heard a number. I heard again that they wanted to turn it into quote unquote manual ATO, where everything was so locked down that that there would be very little employee skill involved. So if you have less employee skill involved, then either A, you can hire less skilled employees, and B, you can hire you don't have situations where they get leverage with rulebook slowdowns and whatnot. The speed is the speed, and they can't improve service by using employee tricks. But I've been trying to figure out, I'm not entirely confident about that explanation. Here we have SS34 in Stamford, aka STAM. I refuse to use the Metro North CP numbers. I think they're terrible. I really wish that Governor Cuomo would stop fiddling around with things like those color schemes on the new subway trains and address more pressing issues like use of the traditional interlocking names in both the Hudson and New Haven on Metro North. One major issue that you got with the Metro North sort of switch over in '83 is when they threw out all the old railroad traditionalists. You threw out all the old railroad traditionalists, and that resulted in a wholesale abandonment of anything that was traditional. We can just use a new system of control point numbers and redo everything and just make it super logical because screw tradition. While I'm sure that influenced the while I'm sure that influenced the choice of signaling system, the real reason that Metro North went to such a sterile dwarf signal type signaling system was mainly because the overhead gantries, it had very close blocks, a lot of overhead gantries on the New Haven line. That meant suspended signals amongst live energized wires, and they really, 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 really wanted to get rid of that, to get maintainers out of the overhead. It's worse than it is on the NEC. Here we have the 30 the old trench at Penn Station, the hole, which is now covered over by a hotel or something. Again, it's a shame that they got rid of the vent shaft on the same point. I can't blame them. That real estate had to have been worth a lot. Some things to note in this picture. One, these double long USNS pneumatic things. These are push me, pull me for the movable point double slips here. Fun fact, a Union Switch and Signal M3 machine, most of them, they did make some special ones for Grand Central, can only pull, they can't do a push-pull operation. So you have to have, if you have a double slip switch with these, or anything with movable point diamonds, you have to have 2 point machines. An A5, on the other hand, can have some, they have a magical version that on one piston stroke can do both a push me and a pull me. I think the GRS H5s have a similar way. Also, if you look over here, so those are the air valves, Model CP, Model CP, Model CP. Don't think this is in service, but this is an original like 1911 jobber right there. Might still be in service, might not be, but that was when this was all controlled by Union Switch and Signal Model A1 point machines as opposed to these Model A5s. At this point, in 2004, Morris interlocking, I mentioned briefly in the other thing, in conjunction with the Morrisville Yard project, was being converted from air operation to, pallet, what do you call it? Pallet switches or prefabricated concrete tied with movable point frogs. So here we have just a view out the back of the train with, I think, the last turnout there. Now I got to get the turnout numbers for these, which means I got to go to since blockstation.net is kaput, I'm going to pull out my own diagrams. And that's going to be the 21 switch and the 34 and the 23. And here we have the 32 switch. Again, anyone who's looking for that blockstation.net content, it's currently cross-hosted both on the Position Light via my generous web space on the Position Light website. Not Position Light, the Red Over Yellow. Check the Position Light blog for a post about the loss of blockstation.net. You can get links to the diagrams where they are now rehosted. That content is not on the Wayback Machine, by the way. Just some of the intro pages. So, make hard copies. Always make hard copies for anything that's super important. Guess it was double. What was I doing with this? I had to have been up against that back window because my camera only had a 3x zoom. I mean, the zoom was effectively worthless. But I don't usually see this amount of red tint. Probably just, oh, dang it. Son of a bitch. I had a good crop there and I screwed it up. What is going on here today? This is the 83 switch there and the 43A. And of course, here we have both signal, the new signal bridge and the old one, and Morris Tower sort of poking out there in the back. To get this aligned properly, not quite. Huh? It's interesting. All these little like stairways to access stuff. What's going on? I'm looking at the chat right now. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Speed increase. New Haven. So anyone who cares about the New Haven Railroad main line, everything from the New York border to New Haven is don't blame Metro North. That's a state of Connecticut issue. Metro North is only it's a contract service. They run the trains. They do certain amounts of track maintenance. Every other capital improvement, including changing light bulbs, is a contracted operation. If the state of Connecticut does not want it, the state of Connecticut, it does not happen. It is not Metro North's problem. It is state of Connecticut needs to find the money. State of Connecticut, despite being very, very wealthy in a lot of places, seems to have some, I don't know what the heck their issue is. It's a strange thing where you can't seem to base a state on being a suburb. If you don't have, they're losing a lot of headquarters right now. They've lost a lot of manufacturing, and for years they've just had issues with tax base. I don't know what they have to do with New York City involving income tax reciprocity. So, yeah, Connecticut, despite being wealthy, it's one of those things where it's like they're land rich and money poor. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there's an HHP8 hiding there. Cute. So these are was just getting some external views of the then new 30th Street parking garage. If you check some of my other videos, I did do a session where later, I think in September of 2014 is where I went out to get pictures of this. May or may not have been open at the time. But this again, this garage is a freaking godsend for photography in the Philly terminal area. If they ever cover over the Ray Street engine yards with some sort of stupid park, I will be pissed off. Jeez, maybe people don't want to have their transit experience being, they want to see the art museum coming into the city, not, they come in like a rat, which is the criticism commonly given to Penn Station. All right, and last picture, I think it was just some thunderheads over the Gunpowder River. I don't know if it's the Gunpowder River, but I don't really care. All right, I gotta get going soon, but let me see if I have any questions here. It's not about. I mean, who's going to pay for it? I mean, Metro North's owned by the state of New York, so Amtrak would ostensibly make a better owner of the New Haven line. That would put further pressure on their claims to say the NEC, quote unquote, makes profit. Anyone, including the current CEO, the NEC both makes a lot of money but costs a lot of money. NEC costs around $1 billion a year to maintain. And that's just the part that Amtrak owns. Throw in the Metro North part with its formerly aging infrastructure, and that wouldn't have helped things matter. NEC is just a money pit to keep it up to those standards, 125, 150 miles an hour. So there's really no free lunch. Anyway, it's Penn Station. That's another one of those things of, it's a shame, but you have to understand. What was up. If you want to blame the problem with Penn Station. By the way, it's nice that there is an arena, in a transit accessible arena. If you're a sports fan or go to concerts, I mean, Madison Square Garden's a pretty nice, nice to have that transit accessible. The problem with Penn Station is ultimately Suburban Station in Philadelphia. If you've ever been to Philadelphia, Suburban Station is absolutely it works. It's underground. It connects to a concourse system that connects to almost every major office tower in the downtown area. People can come in, they can stay out of the rain, takes them exactly where they want to work. That was, Broad Street Station was demolished, was closed in 1952. The resulting Suburban Station underground Philadelphia complex was a resounding success. No one complains that, I wish, Broad Street Station and the Chinese Wall were still there. I don't, who cares about Penn Center, and all those office buildings? No one wants that back. So the PRR was both strapped for cash. Penn Station was seeing a fraction of its ridership. If you look at the ridership numbers, it was the number of people using it was very, very small. I don't know, like it was like six figures compared to like 25 million today. It was not a lot of people. And they looked at it and they're like, hey, for the traffic we have, and the success we had in Philly, let's try to replicate that. But Midtown Manhattan is not Philly. There's not a concourse network. There is not, it is not a long distance hub, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to put them in the mindset. If you were an executive of a profit-making company and you looked at all the stats, low ridership, success at Philly, what would you do? So anyway, I mean, like I said, I knew exactly what they were thinking. For the last thing in the chat, I just explained exactly what the Pennsylvania Railroad was thinking. If you've never been to Philly, check out Suburban Station. The pedestrian, the way that it flows, how you get around it is very well done. It was built in 1927, expanded, and I love that concourse network. I'm going to be doing my SEPTA trip tomorrow. Speaking of SEPTA trip tomorrow, if you're in Philly, come out to Market East, or the station formerly known as Market East, east end of its concourse. We're leaving. Be there at 9. Get your Independence Pass, $12. Going to Warminster, Norristown, 69th Street, Clifton Alden. Lunch is probably going to be downtown with a Broad Street run, but we might have lunch at Norristown, but that's all Hispanic food. I love Hispanic food, but a lot of people don't. So, anyway, Merry Christmas, everyone. I'll see you. Maybe I might be on tomorrow. I don't know. It all depends. But look for me next Friday to Saturday. I will be doing a one-shot of Baltimore stuff in 2004. All right, I'm losing my voice. I got to get going. Everybody have a wonderful day. And again, Happy New Year.